It's Fume Chat, yeah, Fume Chat with Thomas and Nick. We talk perfume and fragrance with humor and wit. From Chanel number 5 to Angel and more. We're covering the famous scents that you're looking for. It's time for some fragrances, it's time to start the show. It's Fume Chat, yeah, Fume Chat, here we go.
Hello and welcome to Fume Chat. I am Nick Gilbert.
And I am Thomas Dunkley.
And we are the fragrance-obsessed hosts of Fume Chat, the perfume podcast. Woo!
Yep, that is us. That is this.
That is us and that is this. And today we are at Les Senteurs in Belgravia.
We are.
My former stomping ground.
Yes, you did stomp a lot here. I've heard that.
I've heard that. Well, James can confirm. So we do have a special guest.
He was the presiding genius of the shop.
Oh, please.
Not long enough.
Please, do not fuel his
Not
ego
long
any more than it is already.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for coming.
That's all right.
Thank you for coming on this very wet morning.
Well,
lovely
it's
to
a
see you
pleasure.
both.
Thank you for inviting us. So Les Senteurs is very much the spiritual home of perfumery in London and even maybe in England, I would say.
I would say so.
Thank you. I
many-
think it is.
Yes.
I think it is. Yeah.
We would
35 years this year.
Yeah,
Goodness
long time.
me.
Yeah,
Yes.
this month.
Wow. And I would say that many a perfume lover has undergone a pilgrimage to this fine establishment.
Yes, from all over the world.
Yes.
Increasingly, it's marvellous. I mean, from Vladivostok, we had somebody. We had a lot from Australia, New Zealand, as well as within this country. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm very proud to say it. I think most people go away transformed one way or another. Yeah.
I would agree.
Yeah.
The times that I would spend with people and they would go from being curious to just in love.
Yes.
In this
yes,
shop because
yeah.
there were so many amazing perfumes for them to discover.
Yeah.
And it went from kind of them never having experienced a niche fragrance to them completely enamoured and
Yeah,
maybe
or
buying
never
several
having
bottles.
enjoyed a fragrance.
No, exactly.
Never allowed themselves. Always, I mean, some people come perhaps, late middle age, or older, and say for 50 years, I've always been looking, I've always been trying, but in 50 years, I've never been excited or really liked a perfume. And I think I really do believe, it's one of my cardinal rules with this business, is that no one really has ever listened to them when it comes to scent. And I don't just mean in the shops, but I mean perhaps with their loved ones, with families. They've never been they've been told what is a good smell. Or told to hurry up.
Yeah.
But they've never been encouraged to open up about themselves and find something that fits, that matches, that excites, that stimulates.
I think it's very much still an underground thing to be into, as it were.
Yes,
so when people say to me,
yeah.
oh, you're into fragrance, it's like they feel it's a little bit weird sometimes. Like, why would you be into fragrance? It's like, well, because it's amazing. There's lots of fascinating things to like.
I think it is, although it's very fashionable at the moment.
Yeah.
Everyone's making one.
Yes, yeah.
But I think you're right, and I mean particularly outside London. Because I'm from the East Midlands, next to Bristol. Where are you from, Tom?
Bedfordshire, so home counties.
So but once you get out of London, I think people are very kind of baffled, sometimes wary, sometimes incomprehending.
Yeah. They think, well, what do you mean there's more fragrance than Hugo Boss?
What do you mean? What do you mean exactly by that?
So Les Senteurs has been in business since 1984, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, October 84.
And it was the first niche perfume
it was
boutique in the country.
It was, and I think for that reason it really defined niche perfumery for the UK, and I think beyond the UK as well. I think it was far more influential than probably we realise, or its founders Michael and Betty Hawksley realised. Because it started in just one street along in Ebro Street. We've only been in two spaces, this shop, so it started in this tiny little shop, like a little wedge of cheese, beautifully done up, and but sort of draped like a Napoleonic tent, So there was an element of the fantastical about it, and one person in there that hadn't got a till. But there were all this plethora of just perfumes people had never heard of. All in those days, nearly all from France. Some a lot more. Some I mean, that was, you see, that's 35 years ago. Some more. You'll know what I mean. Some more niche than we get now. I was everything. The first time I went down there to have a look long before I came to work here. I mean, I'd been in fragrance, commercial fragrance, but there was nothing really I'd heard of. I'd heard of one or two of the names of the brands, but there were so many unknown perfumes in there, and of course prices were lower, and we had more of a. Betty was more inclined to get a certain amount of kind of amusing things and novelties. So there was a lot of things. There were a lot more things for the bath, for perfuming the air. Okay. Candles, those little those cailloux that Annick Goutal used to do. Because we got Annick Goutal going here. That was one of the very first. Really opened on the back of that.
And I think this has always been a very finely curated shop. So whereas there are other boutiques where you go in and it's like just anything niche goes in there. It could be the price ranges vary. You know, the quality varies. It's just a bit of everything.
Yes.
Whereas here it's very much you come here because you know that everything has been almost like pre-selected because it's so good.
Yeah. Or yes, it's and we all although the staff and the hierarchy are bigger and more expansive now. 35 years later, as we've been successful, thank God, and thank everybody. We are everyone who works here has got to really agree, has got to come to a consensus that we do value it, that we would enjoy selling it, that we think it would appeal to people, that it's got something to say, that it's got something unusual, that it's got something essentially niche about it.
It was quite democratic, the selection process.
Yes, and it remains so, I would say. Yeah. And you do get it's not fanciful, I think, in this business, because perfume is so much about emotions and feelings that you do get with so many things. Sometimes you're wrong, but I think after years of it, you do sort of develop, don't you, a kind of almost psychic reaction to things, and you think, oh, this may look odd, maybe, or with the packaging, but this is great, and the other way around.
Yeah.
This is lovely, but it just won't work in here.
Yeah.
It won't go in here.
Yeah.
It won't appeal to people.
Yeah.
And more than, I mean, that's what we've got to do. You know, of course we're a shop, of course we're a business, but we've got to enchant, we've got to educate up to a point. Yeah. But it's not a didactic education, as I always say. It's helping people to educate themselves.
Yes.
To whatever level they want to.
Yes.
You don't have to do anything. As I say, you can do anything you like here, but as long as you enjoy yourself and are satisfied by spending an hour in here, you know, that you've had fun, that you feel better for coming in.
Yeah. I feel like we possibly need to introduce you properly because we've jumped straight into the conversation.
That was my
No.
No,
We would happily record this and it'd be 10 hours long just talking to you. But you are James Craven.
I'm James Craven.
Hi, James Craven. Hello. You are the fragrance archivist here. I believe
the fragrance archivist.
What does that mean? Tell me.
Well,
what is that?
I had to years ago. I had to submit my name and details and billing, as it were, for some business cards for the shop. And I mean, I came here 22 years ago as a sales assistant. And I'm a sales assistant, but they're more than that. And I thought fragrance archivist covered an awful lot of things because I'm not got it. I wouldn't say at all that I've got a very good nose, but I think I've got a very good olfactory memory.
Yes.
And most things that I've smelt in my career or in my life, I remember them. I smell them in my head. So yeah, it was that, and I was then writing a blog weekly. I do a certain amount of other writing. I do a certain amount of training still. So I'm doing lots of things about the storage of information about perfume and the imparting of knowledge about perfume. And I think that makes me something of an archivist.
It does indeed.
And I'm a hoarder.
That's always helpful.
In my private life, I'm a hoarder.
Yeah.
And what is an archivist but a polite name for that?
Yeah, title of episode, Hoarder of Perfume.
Hoarder of perfumes.
So, how did you become interested in fragrance?
Oh, always, just from a tiny tot. I was very fortunate because I came from a family. There's 4 brothers. I'm the eldest, but back in the 1950s, it was one of those old-fashioned families. Everyone was still living locally. My grandfather lived down the road. My aunt, my grandmother. There were relatives everywhere, and everyone was very preoccupied with. Most of them, they were all very fascinated in what makes people tick, and part of that was smell. They weren't. I mean, all the women certainly wore perfume, but they weren't particularly interested in it. But they were very interested in smells, whether it was cooking or gardening, garden smells. Because my mother was a great gardener, and had done a course in horticulture in the 40s. So there was a lot of encouragement to smell things. My father was a vet. And that was just sort of the surgery was off the kitchen, so there was all sorts of strange smells from there. And you see, everything was much more dangerous then, as it were, because there was no sort of health and safety. And I do remember fooling around with cans of creosote and all these things in past surgery. The ether.
Oh, goodness.
Have a smell of ether, James. Have a whiff of ether. So, yeah, it always fascinated me. And then I started buying, later on, when I got a bit of pocket money, like a nice bar of soap or, it's really cheap little perfumes from, not from Woolworths in my case, but there was a local chemist that always had lots of tiny little bottles and things on offer. So it grew, it developed from and the history of it I got into very early because I've always been fascinated by the past, and fascinated by the past, and so it was the famous people who the cliches, but Elizabeth I, Cleopatra, Marie Antoinette. What did they wear? What did they smell like?
Do you think people have an interest in that nowadays? Like that, obviously people are interested in who wore what back then. Yeah. Do you think who wears what now is important to people?
You see, I think that. Can I answer two answers? Yeah, and then remind me if I get what I'm saying. I think the problem with people are fascinated, or they think they're fascinated by what people wore in the past, but I think they find it very, very difficult to comprehend, to realise that the smells that were worn by Cleopatra or Elizabeth I would probably not be recognisable to us in any sort of way as perfume.
Not today.
Oh,
no.
They'd get the most terrible shock, terrible letdown.
Yeah, it would be horrendous.
So. And as I've noticed, and I think other people you see think perhaps they were wearing, Lancôme or something in 1500, because I noticed they're continually.
I think there's some brands that would be saying that they were.
Well, we were there, yeah. I noticed on the radio now they're having to say, of course. Somebody said the other day, of course, there was no internet at the time of Henry VIII. We do need to emphasise that. There was no internet on the field.
Yeah,
of the
imagine
the
Twitter outrage over Henry VIII's wife.
Nowadays, yes, I think people are, because you can't help but be, I think. But again, in my experience, because we've all got whoever you're a fan of, every individual has got their own take on that person, on Keira Knightley or Miss Madonna or Daniel Day-Lewis. Everyone is fixating, all the fans are fixating on this individual, but they've all got a completely different vision. And so when you say, well, this is the one, actually, this is the one.
Yeah.
One is told this person wears, they usually go, oh.
That doesn't sit
well,
right with them necessarily.
That's not what I imagined at all, and drop the subject pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Although Miss Madonna does wear Portrait of a Lady now, doesn't she?
I think she does.
Yeah. She's moved on from her fracas,
The fracas and Poivre. Caron's Poivre, I believe. Yeah. And Oudh years ago, which used to disappoint people dreadfully.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
I don't believe you, somebody said.
I don't believe
it.
So you started here 22 years ago, did you say?
I think so, 98. Yeah, so yes, coming up to 22, in the 22nd year, yeah.
And had you worked in perfume previously to that?
Yes, I'd done about, by that stage, well over a decade. I'd done a long time in Harrods, back to the 80s.
Okay.
Yeah, working for Annick Guitar. Well, Jean Patou were then distributing Annick Guitar, so because of that, I worked a lot with Patou, and they were also handling Caron, so I met them. And then I used to go around a bit because Harrods was much more laissez-faire in those days, and I used to go nip round and help on the Penhaligon counter occasionally because I liked it and got on with them. You know, while you go to lunch, I could be here for half an hour, and someone will look at mine, and after mine, another corner. And then I worked for Crabtree and Evelyn. And then I never worked for Guerlain, but again, you know, one used to go and help on the counter. So it was marvellous, wonderful perfume education then. That black perfume hall, it was marvellous.
Exposure to so much.
It was much, and every sales consultant was a personality. They really were, because there was every age from 16 to 83, I think was the eldest then. And sometimes you know, when I can't sleep at night, I go round that perfume hall, and you know, you can see and remember. You can see every face, remember every name, because now people seem very homogenous in there.
Yes. Attractive and wearing a suit.
Very attractive and beautifully done up. But then, I mean, they were the most extraordinary people. And everyone with a story, and everyone very well versed, either in, not necessarily in perfumes, although most of them were. They've got not only their own product as well, but they'd all got something to say about life.
Okay.
They'd all lived, even the very young ones. It was a wonderful era, and it changed before I left. Before I finally left, as things got ironed out more, and the 90s moved on, but those early days were quite extraordinary. And also in the store, because there were retired, you know, there was the people who'd been singers on the radio in the 50s. There were understudies from actresses from the Rank Studios. There was just all sorts of people in there.
I bet it was fascinating.
Exotic dancers. It really was. It was wonderful.
Do you think that's what's missing in terms of a good customer relationship, is having that sense of personality and also life experience and, I don't know, individuality?
Yes, because I think customers. I think most shops now have become so standardised. We thank God are an exception, but I mean, the stores of all types are so much the same everywhere now. I think people love to have their humanity, their own idiosyncrasies, their own quirks, kind of recognised and reflected. Oh, you think like that too, you know. Which I don't think which I know you don't. You don't get much in shops nowadays.
No.
You really don't anywhere.
No.
I mean, there's one or two wonderful bookshops in London. One very close to here, where you get it still, which is marvellous. But now I think, for all sorts of reasons, there's just a lack of reaction to the shopper. It's just, this is what you require, I think. Whereas quite excited to see people, to see individuals. Because it's what are you going to have fun with, you think?
And a big part of your role is obviously talking to people and trying to select perfume.
Yes, and select and trying and in doing that, trying to save them time. Because time, particularly these days, is the enemy with most people. So they can't spend 4 or 5 hours in here, and if they did, it would be counterproductive for most people, because you can't. The nose isn't up to it. So what you've got to do at fairly brisk order is kind of meet the customer, emotionally meet the customer, kind of size up the customer, what they're likely to want, and then maybe produce 4 or 5 scents that you think may well hit the spot. Because it sounds as though I'm terribly pigeonholing, but you know with some people that there is absolutely no point in taking them to XXX.
Yeah.
Because you know the house style,
Yeah.
you know the web, and you know that this lady is not going to click with that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
but that man might very well love what's
Yeah.
over here.
Yes.
So it's not letting them waste their resources
Yeah.
by saying I'm going to smell everything in the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to find that was quite the challenge sometimes.
Yes,
Is to kind of rein them in a little bit.
Just rein them in, yeah.
And make them realise that what you're trying to do is actually help them. You're not trying to stop them experiencing everything.
Exactly.
You're trying to help them find
Yeah.
the right thing.
Yeah.
Because people quite often get so excited and overwhelmed in a shop like this where there's just
Oh,
hundreds of
absolutely,
bottles.
because it is exciting, and
Yeah.
you have to, you know, when you've been away on holiday or something, you know, for the first minute or two, you see how overwhelming it can be as well
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
walk in with it all, and there's all this potential and all this unknown.
Exactly.
What would your advice be to somebody walking into a perfume shop on how to go about finding a new perfume?
I would say I'd do quite a lot of preparation in advance, in my own head, as it were. I would go because I think most of us are like this with things that are luxuries or pleasures, or certainly with Christmas shopping, is only to go when you're in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. Not think, well, I've always wanted to go and look at Les Senteurs. I've got 10 minutes before the dentist. I'll go then. And I'll get it. I'll get it.
Yeah.
I'll get the perfume. So go when your body clock's right, when you're feeling relaxed, when you're feeling receptive, and in advance, just try to analyse yourself a little bit. What am I looking for? I mean, you may be looking just for a complete surprise or revelation, but I find a lot of people actually, they have got a specific reason. It may be for a wedding, it may be for a holiday, it may be because they've reached a certain stage where they feel they need to change. Just why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? What do I think would excite me? And also, if people find it, I find very difficult to say what their favourite. It's too vague, it's too big. What's your favourite smell? It's too enormous.
Yeah.
But I think to think about it, and it's just as helpful to say what do I really not like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please don't show me this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shall we keep off rose and vanilla today? It just. Not necessarily they're going to be right when you get into it, but it's a
quite often they're not.
framework. yeah.
That was always one that, like, if I don't show me florals, and they buy a floral.
Yes, I
I
can't.
can't
Don't show me a
stand
floral.
florals.
And the other thing I would, you know, because we're always saying it, and I would emphasise to a potential customer, is this absolutely right and wrong doesn't come into it.
Yeah.
Because people can be so inhibited, and they say, well, you're so clever and I'm so stupid and I know nothing. And it's totally not true. We know about the same. It's just with a lot of people, it's not come out yet because it's not been encouraged. You know, there's a lot of nonsense talked about. Well, I can smell this, but you probably can't.
Yeah.
It hasn't been educated, but I think.
So you can smell it. You
I
just
think
don't have
most
the
people,
words.
the people who come here,
Yeah.
you haven't got the words, you haven't got the language. And again, you can use any language because people say, you know, I daren't say anything in case you think I'm stupid. Well, we never do. We never do because that's not the point. So, in sum, I'm saying when you go, just feel open, feel free, but do a little bit of thought about yourself, and then be quite as frank as you can about saying what you fancy smelling. Not necessarily buying, but what you fancy smelling to get you going.
Yeah. Okay.
Sounds like good advice.
Good advice.
Good advice.
Advice from a caterpillar. Yeah.
So you've seeming as this is the home of niche perfumery in the UK, we asked you to curate a selection of 5 iconic niche fragrances that we're going to smell through.
Yeah.
But before we do that, I just wanted to have your thoughts on what do you think makes an iconic perfume?
Right. I think an iconic perfume needs to be chiefly needs to be nothing that is it's taking something that is quite well established, like here I've got an Oudh, say, or I've got a tuberose. So something that that is an established perennial, an established perennial theme in perfume, but doing something different with it. Not trying to be. It's I think an iconic perfume has a touch of genius in it. It's also got to have a classic quality. It mustn't be too laboured. It mustn't be too clever. It's got to have, and I think, well, 4 out of these have because one is fairly new, although it's using old materials. It's got to have a kind of life of its own.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's got. I mean, these that I've picked out. Their fame and their glamour and their legend is kind of spread by word of mouth.
Okay.
Yeah.
They've kind of, as they've got, because I've got one very new one and one very old one here, amongst others, and they sort of become part of folklore. They're quite irrespective of gender, I would say.
Okay.
They're irrespective of age. And they just seem to roll on over the years with a sort of fatal magnetism. That would be my thoughts on iconic perfumes.
That's very good thoughts.
So I would say they're arresting.
Okay.
Arresting without being startling.
Okay.
They make people think again. You say?
Yeah, I like that.
Oh, I think I knew tuberoses, but I've never smelt anything like this.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is
Subversive.
yeah. Yes, the possibility. Yes, gently subversive. Yeah, yeah.
So, which is the first
Faintly
one?
revolutionary.
Faintly revolutionary.
Gently subversive.
Just a little bit.
So, which is the first one you'd like us to smell?
Well, I think let us start with. Let's start with Andy Tower. L'air du désert Marocain. This is what so many first ones smell today.
It's the first perfume.
It's
I
nice,
bought in
smelling
here.
good.
Yeah, I think it's the first perfume I bought here as well.
We bought it
good.
at the same time.
We were both here and we bought this very
And
good
it's
together.
smelling really good today, isn't it?
Yeah.
You see, this is again what I'm always telling people with their mood, the weather, the air pressure, the damp, the heat, all what time of day it is.
Yeah.
It's always going to be. But this, I don't know. This you see is this is an illustration of what I was saying a minute ago. This came in here how many years ago? Can't quite remember. It was well established when you came.
Oh,
So
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Well underway. So it's about
Yeah.
10 years, 10, 11 years. And it's got its own momentum. And what is it? It's really in a way it's very simple. I mean, Andy says it best. It's lying between cool, clean linen sheets in a hotel in Marrakesh with the windows open and the night desert air coming in.
Yeah.
And the night jasmine and the sand and just the kind of the olfactory echoes of the sense of the day. So I guess it's an oriental, but it's a very different sort of oriental. It's a modern oriental. It's a 21st century oriental. It's spare, but it's exotic. And it just seems to have that effortless grab at people.
Yeah.
Because you were asking earlier about the pilgrimages, and people do come all over the world for this one.
Yeah. Well, I would say this is a really good example of a fragrance and a brand that grew through word of mouth. Because it was something that was online.
Online, you see.
And it was the forums that really made Tower a name.
Yeah.
And we've seen the evolution of that brand from being in very, very simple square bottles.
Yeah, I was going to say the original bottles
with some questionable stickers on them.
Yeah.
And then to now in beautiful packaging with a design
the packaging and
fits
it's
the
a
brand.
little note inside.
Yeah.
Yes, still hand signed from
Still
Malle.
hand signed.
Yeah.
It's still largely a one-man outfit. I mean, he's extraordinary and such a good communicator that
Yeah, he really
he says
is.
everything is answered. All those texts and emails are all answered within 24 hours, if at all possible.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. I mean, it's a real old cliche to say a Renaissance person, but he actually is.
Yeah.
because he's such a good talker and he's such an exciting perfumer, and he can paint.
Yeah, it's very
He
talented.
can write and he can talk. I'm sure he can cook as well.
Yeah, probably.
You know, he's
And you know what? He's nice as well.
He's
Just to top
lovely
it
and
all
he's so
off.
funny.
Yeah, he really is.
He's a delight to be with. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love this.
I mean, this was the very first one, wasn't it?
I think it may have been the second.
No, it was
No, the second because
There
because
was,
There was the Maroc Porel.
Maroc Porel, which is
that
still available.
exquisite jasmine.
with that wonderful jasmine,
So
of
intense.
which you need just a tiny drop. That was one.
you
Then
really
this,
do need that.
and then there's been a whole suite of them.
Yeah.
The latest one, the Swiss Alps, the Les Alpes Suisse. I think it's a difficult. Air of the Swiss Alps.
It's always much easier in English, isn't it?
Gorgeous,
I'll
yeah.
have to sniff.
We'll
that
have to
one.
sniff that one.
I've not smelled it yet.
Oh, have you not? It's
No.
lovely. No, just come in. It's lovely. It's a lot of lovely alpine lavender in it.
Ooh, lovely.
And it's
No. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, you had me at
But
Alpine Lavender.
these two and this one particularly, it's kind of it's set the standard for the rest
Yeah.
of them, and it's
Yeah.
established that so recognisable signature. Because that's another iconic attribute to have a recognisable signature.
Mm-hmm.
I know who's responsible for that, whether it's the perfumer or the brand or the inspiration.
Yeah.
It's just you don't confuse an iconic scent with anything else. I think I would say that I'll add that on. You don't say, oh, it's a bit like that.
Oh, yeah.
I say, that is.
No, that is
Yeah,
that.
That
singular.
is
Singular.
Tabac Blond, as we're coming to.
Oh,
Okay.
lovely. Well, let's have a sniff of Tabac Blond.
It's been a long time since I've smelled this. A long time.
Well, let's see. See what your reactions are. We're still in this bottle because, as you know, Caron have had so many repackagings.
They
And
changed it again.
I wanted to show you Narcisse Noir, but I think at the moment you can only get the Parfum, and we haven't got a test at the moment because they're remaking the book again. You know, the famous 40s film. They're remaking it for television.
Oh.
So I hope Narcisse Noir will become more readily available. Yes, you can get the Parfum because
Yeah.
we ordered it in for them, but there's not an Eau de Parfum or Eau de Toilette at the moment.
That's a shame.
Which is a pity. But this is Tabac Blond, which is 100 years old this year, 1919. And I've chosen this. I think in its presence, this is Eau de Parfum.
Mm-hmm.
Double check, yeah. I think it's a little sweeter than it used to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, who knows what it was like in 1919? I mean, I've known it for about 40 years, I suppose. It is sweeter and a little bit, sweet, a bit more honeyed.
Yeah. This
Bit
smells
more-
less clovey.
Less clovey.
Used to smell.
Yeah,
in
it's
recent
brighter, isn't
Yeah.
it? It's less dark.
Yeah, because the clove really sort of stood out for me.
Yes.
In a lot of the
yes.
Caron fragrances in the
yes.
past couple of years,
Yes.
or as I remember them
Yeah.
selling them,
Yeah.
they had a real clove aspect.
Real
and that's
clove.
kind
So
of
it was a
died
real
back in it.
clove carnations.
Yeah. It's still there, but it's way dialed down, and you've got that honeyed, soft golden.
It's more
tobacco
golden.
feel,
Yes,
yeah.
you see, it's more golden. And it used to be much more sort of bronze or
Yeah.
very dark. But here it is because, and I've picked it because it's. It must be certainly in the top 20, if not top 10 of iconic scents. Because Caron is such an extraordinary house. It was so in the lifetime of the founder Ernest Deltroff. So say between his career, 1900 to the Second World War, when he died prematurely in New York, and then his partner, possibly mistress Felicie von Puy, continued. So she was using the master's technique up to her retirement to the 1960s. I mean, it was such an incredibly fertile and imaginative house.
Yeah.
That first half century of Caron, and weird and audacious, and obviously just fascinated with. Deltroff must be so fascinated with chemistry and with smells, with women, with glamour. Those early classic Carons, they smell like someone who's absolutely sort of intoxicated with himself, don't you think? And with what you can do,
Yeah.
scent. drowning in perfume. Caron is. And then this he had the extraordinary idea of using tobacco, of transforming with the Great War, with the awfulness of the Great War, and everybody, it has become very clear recently, everybody recommended by the government and by their doctors to smoke, to cope with it all. Good for your nerves, good for your throat, good for opens the lungs, have another one. All doled out free to the troops all the time, more cigarettes, and then to take this, and to transmute it. Let's have a cigarette. Let's have a tobacco perfume. Let's use it. It wasn't taboo, as people think now. It wasn't taboo at all. But I think it was. I think another bad word that you mustn't say. I think it was trying to take something that was really very common.
Yeah.
In every sense of the word, and let's make a gorgeous perfume out of it.
It's very smooth, isn't it?
Yeah,
so smooth.
Smoother than it was, I think.
Yeah.
Because those clothes used to go jab, jab, jab. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like smooth and buttery to my nose.
Yeah. It feels more like pouch tobacco now than it ever did.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's still lovely.
But it is lovely, and it's still fascinating. And again, you were kind enough to ask about the definitions of iconic perfume. I think more comes through me as we smell them. With iconic perfumes, you may not want to buy a bottle. You may not want to wear it, but you think, that is a really fascinating. So I think most collectors, of which I'm one, or hoarders, archivists, you like a bit of that in the cupboard. You very rarely wear it, but you often want to smell it.
Yeah, pull it out for a sniff every now and then.
Yeah.
I mean, there are so many fragrances that I have at home that are just like or not at home anymore, at the lab, but for reference, for things that I just want to smell again, so that I
let's reassess that as we age, as we smell more, as we change, as our taste changes, as the perfume changes. And then
next.
And then I've chosen, and they're very close together time-wise, but Knize Ten.
Oh.
Because this is, I think, iconic.
Yeah. This is one of the ones that people would come here for, especially because no one else had it.
No one else still does have it.
Yeah.
Which I find extraordinary. 1921, usually said to be 21. And the background to the Knize company is a little bit like Creed, in that the company began as tailors, but rather than London and Paris, they were Berlin and Vienna. And they were founded in the 1860s, and they were specialists in, again, a bit like Creed, riding habits, but they were more tailors for men, just for men. Uniforms, Prussian uniforms, Franz Joseph, Wilhelm II, and then this came out in 21, so 2 years after Tabac Blond, and I would say just picking up the tobacco idea of Tabac Blond, because Molinar then did Habanita. There was one cigarette scent after another because of Tabac Blond, but then bringing into this sort of leathery. It's Tabac Blond, as we've said, is now honeyed and sweet and golden, but this isn't at all. It's quite bitter. It's quite dark. It's like those sort of fogs over Berlin. It's quite oppressive.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of clove in here. There's a sort of hay. There's a hay note. There's coumarin. Some people sense a sort of rubberiness, so a smoky.
I feel like it's like leather boots.
It's almost like squeaky in a way, isn't it? It's like, because it's got a lightness to it though, because there's like a sherbety fizziness. Yes.
Oh, good. Yes, the fizz. Yes.
Because this is the kind of leather that I can get behind. I hate really tarry, smoky.
Smoky, sort of acrid leather.
Yeah. Whereas this is kind of more smooth.
It's warm,
buttery,
isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's the modern leather, I think. The modern leather molecule over the last few years has been very sharp, I think, in a lot of sense. So it's more smoky than leathery.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yes, still. Yeah.
But this we've got so many regulars for this.
Of course.
Of all ages.
Yes. I used to sell a lot of this when I was here.
Not good, very reasonable price.
Yeah.
2 sizes. Simply packaged. And a gentleman came in, must have been last Christmas, and he said, I've been wearing this for 70 years. And I said, tell me what you think of it now. And he said, it's very little change, he said to me. There's very little. And what there is, maybe my age and things altering in the body. He said, I don't think it's changed much at all. Which is very unusual.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of the things that would have been used in it, probably originally, would have been regulated out.
Oh, absolutely. I should imagine so.
You know, it smells great.
Yeah, but whatever,
Yeah, what's still there smells fantastic.
Yeah.
I love Knize Ten.
I like that. I'd wear that. I wouldn't wear many leathers, but I'd wear them.
Yeah.
Because it does. It's certainly on me. After a couple of hours, it does go beautifully ambery as well. I know it doesn't on a lot of people, but I get a softness of that leather goes into as an amber.
It gets a little more smoky on me, actually, a little more.
And Dietrich is supposed to have worn it. You know, it's got all these accretions of legend. Maurice Chevalier. So it has got a folklore to it. There's a weirdness about it.
Yeah.
And then, so there's a completely different smell. I've chosen Carnal flower. Frederic Malle, of course. Now, I mean, this was, and it still is, but this was the iconic precursor of Portrait of a Lady, because before Portrait of a Lady came out, everyone was wearing this.
Yeah. Remember there was one year and they didn't have enough tuberose from the harvest.
They didn't have enough tuberose.
People came in and complained non-stop.
Yeah.
Not enough stock.
But this is you see this I think is fascinating because this is reinventing the tuberose.
Yeah.
And I remember Frederic coming round to this shop when we first took the line on, when we saw quite a lot of him, and singing the praises of fracas from the late 40s. And saying how they wanted to, as it were, honour fracas, but reinvent the tuberose, create a fracas for the 21st century, create a tuberose legend for the 21st century. And instead of being pink and frilly and wasp-waisted like fracas is, they wanted an analysis, a recreation, a painting, as it were, of the tuberose in the earth, of the growing flower, of the leaves of the earth, of the humus, the soil. And then those extraordinary flowers coming out.
It's such a magnificent rendition.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
It is. And every time you smell it, there's no doubt it's that, but it just strikes you every time as how beautiful it is and audacious and forceful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you get such an image of the tuberose in your head.
Yes.
Sort of solitary tuberose.
It's like a hologram.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it's so vividly green.
So
and
green.
So crisp.
Yeah, that one like
rainy, sappy, juicy, covered in dew. Yeah. And then I thought the other day, thinking about this in fracas, that I think fracas was really, well, I suppose shocking in the 30s and then fracas in the 40s, that no one has really done a tuberose perfume before, had they, in the 19th or 20th century.
Well, there was...
Because wasn't it, I think it was just considered too much.
Yeah, I think it was, and probably, but also the material's so expensive.
And so expensive, yeah.
It's there in things.
It's in things,
but
exactly.
It wasn't really like a soliflor.
Give me a soliflor tuberose, yeah.
And then I think Carnal flower kind of set a trend going that's never stopped.
Yeah, because even in mainstream,
like every niche brand has a tuberose.
Every niche brand has a tuberose. Yeah, even in mainstream, they're trying to push.
Yes, that's right.
Push it, even though it doesn't. I don't think it does as well.
No, yeah, of course, because Gucci Bloom.
Yeah, Gucci Bloom.
But here, today I'm smelling in here like a nutty aspect that I've
there.
never really picked up before.
Oh, yeah. No, I know just what you mean. I do know just what you mean.
Like hazelnut. Green
hazelnut. That's right.
Yeah, it's
that's
like
right.
the fleshiness of a nut, isn't it? Yeah.
I never ever picked that up before.
Yeah.
I always it always seemed a little bit peppery to my nose. That's not quite there.
Yeah. But it is fabulous.
Yeah.
And it smells quite buttery this morning.
Yeah,
as well.
so that is quite buttery this morning.
Yeah.
Down here, because we're down in this little womb-like room. It is, isn't it? It's very buttery.
Yeah.
But I mean, you see, a legendary ingredient.
It tastes good on the
I think it was because it grows naturally in South America and the Orient, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because the Aztecs knew about tuberoses.
Yes, yeah, it's Mexican
and always a cult in India. But did it start in Mexico?
Yeah.
And was then transplanted and then flourished in India? Yeah. Because it's about that era, 1600s, you start reading about it in India, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's the way that they transplanted vanilla from Mexico as well.
Yes. And the tomato.
Yeah.
But the flowers of the bone, they called them, because of that glistening white, the Aztecs. But, I don't know, there's just something about the tuberose plant, having successfully grown one.
Yeah.
I just found it I got these bulbs by post, and I planted them. And then I got this profusion of, planted them in February, kept them indoors in a hot sunny window. Then in the spring came this mad profusion of green leaves, and I thought nothing was going to happen.
Yeah.
And then much later, then this stem emerges, and then the way at night it's kind of luminous, and then this extraordinary scent, and I'm bewitched by it because they're quite animal-like, aren't they? They're all, triffid or whatever. They're not. They're quite frightening.
There is something a little bit dangerous.
A little bit Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah, what's it doing now?
Yeah, why is it luring me in? What does it want?
Yeah, I just... And I think Carnal has this hypnotic power.
Yeah,
as well.
totally. Yeah, I agree.
And as I smell it now, I'm getting this kind of clover leaf feeling about it, which is a very, very vegetal green aspect.
And do you think, I mean, I know we're above the gender consideration, but how do you think tuberose sits on men's skin?
Some men really well, not me particularly, but I think that's...
I think Andy Towers' tuberose is great for men, the Sotto la Luna.
Ah, yeah.
With that sort of, it's very dark, almost, there's almost like a carbon note in it.
Graphite.
Yeah.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then the final one. Well, the final one because this is Dusita. This is Umivijani, but this is her sensational oud, and I think I've chosen this as iconic because I think here's a Thai girl who's grown up.
Blimey.
Yeah. Who's grown up in a culture that understands oud, that knows exactly what oud is, where it comes from, what you do with it, what it's for, the spiritual significance. And I feel she knows because it's mixed with orange blossom amongst other things. So it kind of works backwards. You go from this very over the top, grubby oud, really rather dirty fecal oud, into this wonderful soft powdery orange blossom in the end, or it does on me.
It's intense.
And I just it's very intense. But I think it's really very beautiful, and I think she's doing. I feel it's oud in the hands of a master. This one, that she knows just what she's doing with it, because I think so often people have, oud is just plonked in the middle. So many commercials. Since everybody did one, well, there you are. That's it.
Yeah, got your oud.
And so many people now, I think oud. It's a bit like amber. It's become a sort of catch-all word. People say, "Well, I like oud scents," but what they really mean is smoky or woody. Or oriental, patchouli, yes, indeed.
And I think if you got them to smell something like this, which is a bit barnyardy, a bit blue cheesy, they'd be like, "Oh, I don't like that."
Cheesy, that's right. I don't like that at all. No, I said I wanted
an oud.
And it's like, well, this is an oud. This is very, it feels very straight up, almost.
Yeah.
But still translucent.
Yeah,
That's
yes,
what's kind of interesting about
there
it.
is
There's
a
like an
lightness.
airiness and lightness
There
to
is,
it.
you see. I think so. I think it's a very feminine working of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because all her, and again, this isn't saying only women can wear it, but I think she has got a very feminine touch with her line. Bizarre.
Yeah, I
they're
would agree.
quite,
I really
they're
like,
soft and glowing, and
yeah, I like the La Douceur du Siam,
yeah, I love that.
but it is a bit
I
more
love
feminine.
that. Yeah, that's got carnation in,
Yeah.
but delicately done.
This is goodness me.
Yeah.
This is
That's why I said
proper
it to
stinky
last.
Yeah.
Oh
Isn't
yes,
it?
yeah.
I'm going to be
Goodness
smelling
me.
this for the rest of the day. I think I've got some on my nose.
If you've got some on your nose, yeah, that's it forever.
Just have to get a new nose now.
Goodness me.
That's it.
So I thought, yes, so that's a little showstopper to end with. I thought.
Oh, well, it
And
certainly
I
stops
didn't
the
want
show.
it to.
Yes.
I didn't want.
I think
it
this
to,
was a good one to end on. Yeah,
I didn't want
definitely.
to begin by filling the room with this, but it is rather magnificent. Yeah.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Just comes as extrait de parfum.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
you'd want it to
But
be
it
that
would
kind of
last a long
intensity.
time.
And you
Yeah.
wouldn't need much, goodness me.
But that's something I'm thinking. I think that's with age too. That I'm saying to people. I think with most scents these days, less is more.
Yeah.
And I used to think quite the reverse. But I do think a less.
More is more.
Yeah, put on plenty. But now
Yeah.
I think it does help with this problem. People say, "Oh, I can't smell it anymore." They don't ask me. I think it is better if you make the brain and the nose chase it a bit,
Yeah.
so that it's not everywhere.
No. Spray it once or twice and leave it.
And leave it, yes,
Yeah.
and maybe just have it on your arms or just on your neck, just on one place.
Yeah.
Don't go on and on with it.
Lovely. Wow. Honestly,
Okay,
James,
that
it's
was
been
lovely.
such a pleasure.
Yeah, well, you are kind. It's been super, thank you.
Where can people find Les Senteurs if they want to come and pay you a visit? Where are we? Where is it?
We're in SW1. We're very convenient for Sloane Square Tube, which is about 5 minutes away. We're 71 Elizabeth Street, and coming the other way, about 10 minutes from Victoria Station, which is also the tube station. And if you come out of Victoria Station and head for the coach station, that is at the far end of our road.
Okay.
So that's probably the easiest if you don't know the area.
Yeah.
Come to Victoria, head for the coach station, and we're at the other end of the street.
Yes, and you'll find some form of big floral display outside the front.
Yes,
Normally
yes.
there's
At the
massive
moment,
perfume
we've got a
bottle.
changing display of flowers, or something appropriate for Christmas.
Yes.
But at the moment, we've got more dark, rather lovely dark dahlias.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Brilliant.
Gorgeous. Great.
And we're open every day except for Sundays,
Okay.
and our routine hours are 10 till 6. Seasonal, festive hours may vary. Christmas and Easter. Yeah.
Oh gosh, thank you so much, James.
Yes, thank you for taking time out of
at all.
your busy hoarding
It was
schedule.
so kind of you to ask me. Thank you.
No, honestly, thank you very much. And then you can find us in the usual places on Twitter and Instagram as Fume Chat.
Yeah, I am Nick R. Gilbert. He is Candy Perfume Boy in some form or
Yeah,
another.
just Google it, and then you'll be fine.
Thank you so much.
Okay, goodbye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
It's Fume Chat, yeah, Fume Chat with Thomas and Nick. We talk perfume and fragrance with humor and wit. From Chanel number 5 to Angel and more. We're covering the famous scents that you're looking for. It's time for some fragrances, it's time to start the show. It's Fume Chat, yeah, Fume Chat, here we go.